Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Karthikeya IAS Academy. So, in this session, we are going to discuss about anthropology optional and we are going to get insights on the syllabus. So, most of the aspirants have this ambiguity. So, which optional has to choose? To choose an optional, the first criteria is to know the syllabus and the questions that are being asked. So, in this session, we are going to discuss in detail syllabus analysis. The first things first about me. So, I'm Ashok. I did my master's from IIT Kharagpur. As of now, I am working as an assistant professor at IBS, International Institute of Business Studies. I have authored about 3 books for UPSC Civil Services examination in the areas of science and technology and ecology. So those books are available online. So if you want to purchase, feel free to purchase so. And I am the head faculty of Karthikeya IAS Academy, and I am the guest faculty for many other institutions. And the subjects I usually take are from the general studies, science and technology, ecology, international relations, and internal security. And for the optional, I teach anthropology optional. So let's go to the syllabus explanation. Anthropology, paper 1. So as you might be aware that every optional is divided into 2 parts, paper 1 and paper 2. And that comprises of about 250 marks. So optional itself encompasses for about 500 marks, and because you're choosing that optional, that becomes a very crucial part in scoring. The rest of the GS is common for everyone, but the optional makes the difference. So choose wisely. And also in the recent times, the anthropology optional was chosen by most of the aspirants because of limited syllabus and ease of understanding, and it is the scoring is very large. The first part, we have the meaning, scope, and development of anthropology. The meaning, scope, and development of anthropology, and the anthropology relationship with other disciplines like history, economy, sociology, psychology, political sciences, life sciences, and medical sciences. When it comes to anthropology optional, please stick to the syllabus. So what is specified, you just go through it. So for the anthropology, the meaning of anthropology, scope of anthropology, and development of anthropology, and its relationship with the other disciplines. So this is the first part which we have. And it also specified that the relationship with respect to these subject areas only, don't go for others. Okay, so that is the most important thing. And as you can see, relationship with other disciplines, anthropology is multidisciplinary in nature. It is linked with every other area. You will see the anthropology by definition, right? So for the people who doesn't know this anthropology optional, so for them I have put a few slides to explain about anthropology and the concept of anthropology. Anthropology by definition is a discipline of infinite curiosity about human beings. Anthrop means human, ology is study. So we are dealing with study of human beings, right? So this is what is being told. It's a discipline of infinite curiosity about human beings. So humans are the evolved organisms on the earth whose intellect is unparalleled. But how did they come into existence? So what is the course of action that had happened over the history that led humans? Right? So this is what anthropology deals with. So how the culture has been formed. So how the humans have become so complex. So how the civilizations has been formed. So what are the institutions that were established by the humans. Right? All things are studied in anthropology. It is a discipline that studies humans, focusing on study of differences and similarities. The humans have been associated with entire world, so they were scattered across the globe. But the humans present in this geographical area were totally different from the other geographical area. So, and at the same time, there are similarities as well. So, what are those similarities and what are those differences? This is what being studied, and that is studied both biologically as well as culturally. So Asian might be different from an African. Caucasian might be different from some other racial identity. So those differences and similarities are actually studied in anthropology. And anthropology is concerned with typical biological and cultural characteristics of human populations of all periods and in all parts of the world. So here we are talking about the typical biological and cultural characteristics of human population of all periods. That means right from the human existence, right? We have been evolved from the primates to Homo sapiens. So whatever the intermediaries that were present, so we study about everything, humans of all times and from all the parts of the world. So this is what anthropology specifically deals with. Now, the scope of anthropology. So when you talk about the scope of anthropology, it deals with, right, both geographically as well as historically. As we already discussed here, of all periods, that means it is talking about historical aspects, and of all past, it is talking about geographical aspects. And anthropologists are interested in all varieties of people in every part of the world. So there are a few communities that were totally unaware of the world, how it is developed. They are the primitive societies. So even the anthropologists study them, right? So every human being across the entire world is studied under anthropology. Anthropologists are interested in the people of all periods from millions of years ago to the present. And the broader scope of anthropology is required to confirm that any suggested generalization about human beings, any explanation of some characteristics of human culture or biology is applicable to many times and places of human existence, not just limited group. Right? So when you're talking about the broader scope, right? So we are comparing two different societies, two different people, two different cultures, right? And we are trying to ascertain the similarities as well as the differences. So may it be the biological or may it be the cultural, right? This is the scope of anthropology. It is so vast. And the next part deals with the main branches of anthropology. So what branches of anthropology are to be studied for optional? So socio-cultural anthropology, biological anthropology, archaeological anthropology, and linguistic anthropology. The four branches of anthropology, four main branches of anthropology. Social, cultural, which specifically deals with the cultural aspects of anthropology. Biological, right, which deals about the interior of human body. And archaeological, right, remains. And linguistic, the language. So you can see here. Socio-cultural anthropology, the study of how and why the cultures in the past and present vary or are similar in terms of the ways that a particular population or society thinks and behaves. If you're talking about one kind of a society, so how the culture has actually developed. So why two different societies, cultures are same or why they are different, right? So if they are different, so where did they come from the common culture or they have parallelly evolved? So what is the basis of that culture? So what is the belief system, right? Everything comes under socio-cultural anthropology. Biological anthropology, the next part. It is the question about the emergence of humans and their later evolution and about how and why contemporary human populations vary biologically, right? So as I already explained, the African, American, so Asian, right? So these all people look totally different, right? The morphologically or the physiologically they are different. So what makes them different, right? So how they have actually evolved into that diverse groups. So that is studied biologically, right? And archaeological anthropology, so focuses on the past human cultures through the analysis of the material remains. So the only way we could actually talk about the human existence is through the fossil remains. So we are able to establish that the humans have evolved from these intermediaries is only because of the fossil remains. So archaeological anthropology deals with those material remains and it establishes how the human cultures or the humans have evolved both biologically as well as culturally. The linguistic anthropology. It focuses on human languages, past and present, including the cultural context in which language is used and the ways in which the language, social life, and culture are intertwined. Right? So, what it is talking about, the languages, past as well as present, how the languages have evolved. Right? So, previously there was only sound, there was no language, there are no alphabets, there is no script. So how the language has actually developed, right? So how was it connected to the cultural aspect as well, right? And we have to discuss the ways in which the language, social life, and culture are intertwined, both are how both are together. Because when you're talking about the language, we take it as a part of culture, and the culture is associated with the language. So how they are interconnected. So this is what we study in the main branches of anthropology. And next, we study about human evolution and emergence of man. Human evolution. So we already discussed that. So anthropology itself is about the human beings since the beginning. So we say, of all times. So how they have actually evolved. So the primates, the previously before the continental drift, they used to be together. And once the continental drift happened, so they were separated into the old world monkeys and the new world monkeys, and the old world monkeys evolved into the humans. So how it actually happened? So this is what we're gonna study, right? So in this, we study about biological and cultural factors of human evolution, theories of organic evolution, right? So previously, so we believed in creationism. So there is supreme power which created everything, and later we started to believe, because of the fossil remains or because of the scientific evidences, we started to believe in the organic evolution. So what are those different theories of organic evolution? Pre-Darwinian, Darwinian, and post-Darwinian. And we discuss about synthetic theory of evolution, right? And brief outline of terms and concept of evolutionary biology. So about Dawes rules, Scopes rules, Gauss rules, parallelism, convergence, adaptive radiation, and mosaic evolution. So how we all have evolved, how different races have evolved. There is no pure race, by the way, so we're gonna study in other concept, right? How we are biologically different, why we are culturally different. So all these concepts of evolution from one species to the other species comes under this human evolution and emergence of man. The next, characteristics of primates. So when you're talking about characteristics of primates, of our ancestors or of us, what are the basic characteristics we have, right? So we study about the characteristics of the primates. So different primates, what is the body structure, how the skull was, so how the facial structure is, what is the brain composition, so how the backbone, so whether they are bipedal or they walked on four legs, right? So or they're arboreal or different. So all these characteristics of the primates comes into this question, right? And we discuss about evolutionary trend and primate taxonomy. Taxonomy is nothing but naming of the primates. Taxonomy is nothing but naming of the primates. Okay? And primate adaptations, whether they are arboreal or terrestrial. Arboreal means whether they used to live on the trees or on the land. So primate taxonomy, primate behavior, tertiary and quaternary fossil primates, and living major primates which are already living, and comparative anatomy of man and apes. So the apes, so we have evolved from the apes. So what is the comparative anatomy? So how similar they are, how different they are. So that comparative anatomy and skeletal changes due to the erect posture and its implications. So when you compare to the other animals, we walk on two legs. So because of the skeletal changes, right? So because of the erect posture, so what implications does it bring to the human beings? So this is what is being studied in characteristics of primates. And the next we study about phylogenetic status. So phylogenetic status means evolutionary tree. So when they evolved, how they diverged or how they converged. So everything, the phylogenetical analysis through the history from the beginning till today is actually studied in the phylogenetic status. So in this we study phylogenetic status, characteristics and geographical distribution of the following. What? right? So Pleistocene hominids in South and East Africa, Australopithecines, right? So we discuss about Homo erectus, and we discuss about Neanderthal man, we discuss about Rhodesian man, and we discuss about Homo sapiens and the other subspecies as well, right? So we discuss about how different species of humans since the ancestral times have evolved and how they are linked together. So which came first? Who are the intermediaries? Who are the present human population? So this is what is being studied in the phylogenetic status, right? So as you can see, Dryopithecus, the earliest known ancestor of the man. Australopithecus, they were about 1.2 meters tall and could walk upright, and they were inhabited the African mainland. Homo habilis, they were about 5 feet tall and could make use of tools. Homo erectus, they were more evolved. So erectus, they were completely erect. They were also upright and had larger brain size. And Homo sapiens, these are we. We are Homo sapiens. They are the modern man. They developed the power of thinking, used tools, were omnivores, and produced art. The brain was reduced to about 1300 cc. Right? So these are the different humans who have evolved over time to create or to exist for the existence of Homo sapiens. And the next one, we discuss about the biological basis of life. Right? So what is the basis of life? So how the life has actually come into the existence on the earth. The earth was actually formed about 4.5 billion years ago, and the life on the earth has actually started about 3.5 billion years ago. So what is the basis of that formation of life, right? So in this we study about the cell, DNA structure and replication, the basic biology part, and we discuss about protein synthesis and the genes, and we discuss about mutation, chromosomes and cell division. So the basic fundamental aspects of biology are discussed in this biological basis of life. And we discuss about the principles of prehistoric archaeology. Prehistoric archaeology, it is a part of archaeological anthropology. You can figure it out, right? So in this we discuss principles of prehistoric archaeology, right? So when you're talking about prehistoric archaeology, how can you establish that this fossil remain had been established during this particular time? How can you definitely say that this fossil remains are from that particular time? So that is what the archaeological evidences are. So that is what archaeological analysis is. So for that we use relative and absolute dating methods. Relative as well as absolute dating methods. So we discuss in detail about these dating methods, their advantages as well as the disadvantages. And also we study cultural evolution and broad outlines of prehistoric cultures. In this, we discuss about Paleolithic era, Mesolithic, Neolithic, Chalcolithic, Copper Bronze and Iron Age. Right? So all these things you will be studying in ancient history as well. And the next, we discuss about the nature of culture. So how the culture has been formed. So what is culture? How it has actually formed? How it has become complex? Right? What are the different aspects of culture? Right? So all these things are discussed. The nature of culture. In this we discuss the concept and characteristics of culture and civilization. And we discussed about ethnocentrism and cultural relativism. Right? How the culture is totally linked. So how for the ethnic aspects the culture is an intrinsic factor. Right? So as you can see the definitions of culture, the culture is the man-made part of the environment. The culture is not the content of social life, but it is an order and organization of social life. And we can see the other definition given by Malinowski. The culture comprises of inherited artifacts, goods, technical processes, ideas, habits and values. Everything comprises of culture, right? And you can see the other definition by Edward is the complex whole which includes knowledge, belief, art, morals, law, custom and any other capabilities and habits acquired by man as a member of the society. So the complex is so large. The culture is so large, right? It is more complex. It is not just the basic, the rules that we follow, right? It is about how we think, how we act, so what law we follow, right? So what capabilities do we have? What habits do we have? So what ideas have evolved over the time. So everything is a part of culture. The next is about the nature of society, right? So in this, the nature of society, we discussed about the concept of society. So what is a society, right? Not to be confused, right? So, and we discuss about how the society and culture are linked, right? And we discuss about social institutions, we discuss about social groups, and we discuss about social stratification. So Varna system, social stratification. So different social group, either it can be religious groups or anything. Social institution, marriage is a social institution, right? Religion is a social institution. So all these different aspects of society are studied under this nature of society. We discuss about marriage, social institution. So we discuss about the definition and universality of the marriage, the laws of the marriage, right? So whether it is endogamy or exogamy or hypergamy or hypogamy or incest taboo. And we discussed about the type of the marriage. So whether it is a monogamy, polygamy, polyandry or the group marriages. So how do you go for marry? So most of, for your insight I'm telling you. So most of the Indians believe that they are monogamous. So they marry only one individual. So the but technically the most of the Indians follow serial polygamy. It is one after the other. So if the wife or the husband dies, they go for marrying again. So that is what we call serial polygamy. The monogamy is the mating only one individual for the entire lifetime. That is what the monogamy is. So what type of marriage system that existed in our society? And we discuss about the functions of marriage. Different functions of marriage. What is the purpose of the marriage? What functions does it do? And we discuss about marriage regulations, whether they are preferential, prescriptive or proscriptive. And we discuss about the marriage payments, bride wealth and dowry. So all these concepts are discussed in the marriage. And we discussed about family, right? So in this family, social institution, we discuss about definition and universality of the family. We discussed about family, household and domestic groups and functions of the family, types of family and impact of urbanization, industrialization and feminist movements on family. Because the previously the families used to be joined and now they have become isolated. They have become nuclear, right? So that is an impact of urbanization. The most of the rural people are migrating to the urban areas, right, in search of resources, in search of livelihood, right? So because of that, so what impact has it been on the family? So it's studied here. And the next one, kinship, right? So kinship is nothing but how are you related, right? So we have two different types. So consanguinity and affinity. So whether you're related by blood or by marriage, right? So this is what is discussed in the kinship. So we discussed about the principles and the types of the descent, right? So how the progeny, how the descent is happening. Either it is unilineal, double, bilateral and ambilineal. And the forms of the descent groups, lineage, clan, fratry, moiety and kindred. And we discussed about the kinship terminology, whether it is descriptive or classificatory. And we discussed about descent, phylation and complementary phylation and descent and alliance, right? As you can see, types of kinship groups. The family is a group consisting of the close relatives and these relatives are known as kins. The kinship is the relationship between the persons by blood or by marriage, right? You can be linked either by blood or by marriage. This method of it is a method of reckoning relationship. This is what the kinship is, right? And we also discussed about the economic organization. So most of the anthropologists believe the economic organization has been there since the very beginning, but the few believe that it has come later. So few believe the culture evolution has actually started with the economic organization, right? So what is this economic organization? So what is the meaning of it? The scope, relevance of economic anthropology. And so we discussed about the formalist as well as substantivist debate. So how economic organization has played a very important role for the evolution of the mankind, right? So that debate was there between the formalist as well as substantivist. And we discussed about the principles governing the production, distribution, exchange, right? So we discussed about production, distribution and exchange. In the communities subsisting on hunting and gathering, fishing, swiddening, pastoralism, horticulture, agriculture, and we discussed about globalization and indigenous economic systems. So everything about the economic organization of the societies are discussed. So when you're talking about anthropology, just because I'm using the term society, that doesn't mean that we are studying only the present day societies. We also study the primitive societies as well, right? So the study of present day societies is dealt with the sociology. The study of the primitive societies is actually dealt with anthropology. And the anthropology draws the comparative analysis between the past societies as well as the present day societies, and it understands how the people have actually evolved, how the culture has actually evolved. And the next, we discussed about political organization and the social control. Political organization and social control. So, what are the political organizations we have? Band, tribe, chiefdom, kingdom, state, right? So, it started with a small group of people, band. It ended with the state, country, the nation, right? So, as you can see, the concepts of power, authority, and legitimacy, how it has evolved. So, what is the social control, law, and justice in the simple societies or the primitive societies, right? So, how it has actually prevailed. So, all this is actually studied, as you can see in the band. The mode of subsistence is food collecting, hunters and gatherers. Community size is very small. The social differentiation, it is egalitarian. Everybody used to participate. And major forms of distribution is the reciprocity, the barter system. So when it comes to the state, you can see the difference. We follow intensive agriculture. And the community size, we have cities and the towns. And the social differentiation, we have the castes and the classes. And the forms of distribution, it is a market system. So it is totally different from that of the band. And from the band, we have developed gradually to form the state. So this political organization and social control is studied. The next is the religion, another social institution, right? So we discuss here how the religions has actually formed. So what are the theories which we have, right? In this we study anthropological approaches to study of religion, evolutionary, psychological, and functional, right? And we discussed about monotheism and the polytheism. So how it actually started, right? Monotheism, how it started, polytheism, how it started, right? We discuss about sacred and profane. So what is considered sacred, what is considered profane? So we discuss about myths and rituals, right? What are the myths we have? So what are the rituals that are being followed, right? So how they have actually evolved. And we discuss about forms of religion in tribal as well as the peasant societies, right? And in this we discuss animism, animatism, fetishism, naturalism, and totemism, right? Different aspects of religion. And we discussed about religion, magic, and science distinguished. So how the magic and science are totally different, right? And we discussed about magico-religious functionaries, right? So about the priests, right? Or shaman, medicine man, sorcerer, witch. So whatever the names we actually call, right? So magico-religious functionaries. These are called the magico-religious functionaries. So how are they affecting? So how they have actually come? So why people started to believe them, right? So all these aspects of religion are studied in anthropology. And different anthropological theories. For you, I'm giving you the insight. Anthropological theories are a bit confusing because most of the theories look similar, and the most of the thinkers as well as anthropologists names are actually involved over that. So you will have to spend significant amount of time in understanding and contemplating anthropological theories, right? So as per the syllabus of UPSC, right? So what anthropological theories do we have, right? We have classical evolutionism by the anthropologists, right? Historical particularism, functionalism, structuralism, culture and personality, neo-evolutionism, cultural materialism, symbolic and interpretive theories, cognitive theories, and postmodernism. Right? These are the different theories, anthropological theories we discuss. Right? So the next one, culture, language, and communication. Culture, language, and communication. Right? So what is the nature and origin and characteristics of language? So how it has actually formed. So how verbal and non-verbal communication started. So what is the social context of language use? Why do we use the language, right? So what is the social context of using the language? So this is studied here, right? The next concept, we discussed about research methodologies in anthropology. What research methods do we use? Do we use the field work, or we don't go to the field? So how do we compare the two different societies? On what basis do we take? So if you're talking about the dissimilarities, how do you address those dissimilarities, right? So all these research methodologies are discussed. So here we discuss the fieldwork tradition in anthropology, distinction between the technique, method and methodology, tools of data collection, observation, interview, schedules, questionnaire and case study, genealogy, life history, oral history, secondary sources of information and participatory methods. So different types of data collection which we have. So you can just observe them and you can write it. You can interview them. You can go for schedules. You can design a questionnaire, right? So you can learn through life history or the oral history. The few stories are orally told, but you don't really have that in books, right? So all those important aspects are used for the data collection to understand the societies, and how the analysis is done, how interpretation is done, and presentation of the data is done. So all these things are studied. And the next concept is human genetics, right? Human genetics. And again, we go to the core of biology part, right? Here we discuss about methods and application, right? For the study of genetic principles of man family study, right? So it is pedigree analysis twin study. So it actually studies about how the genetical structure, even though it might be similar, how two individuals can be totally different, right? Or depending upon, even though the genetics are different, so depending upon the person's brought up, how they can be similar, how they can be different. So all this actually studied over here, right? So we study about the co-twin method, cytogenic genetic method, chromosomal and biochemical methods, immunological methods, DNA technology and recombinant technology, right? And we discussed about Mendelian genetics in man family study, and we discussed about single factor, multi-factor, lethal, sublethal, and polygenic inheritance of man, right? So how the inheritance is actually done. So how the lethal genes are being inherited from one individual to the offspring, right? So all these aspects of human genetics are actually studied. And the concept of genetic polymorphism. Polymorphism means how different are we when you talk about the DNA. So recently we have got the DNA fingerprinting bill. So that is being used to identify the crime, the criminal, right, during the crime scenes, right, for the faster disposal of justice. So when you're talking about genetic polymorphism, even though in all the humans across the world, about 99.9% of the genetic material or the DNA is same, there is 0.1% which is completely unique to that individual. So we call that genetic polymorphism, unless the individuals are homozygotic twins, right? So what is this concept of genetic polymorphism and what is selection? And we discuss about Mendelian population, Hardy-Weinberg law, and causes and changes which bring down frequency, mutation, isolation, migration, selection, inbreeding, and genetic drift. So all these are thoroughly biological. So we gonna discuss everything in our sessions. Consanguineous and non-consanguineous mating, right, between the blood related and between non-blood related. So what is the genetic load, genetic effect, and consanguineous and the cousin marriages, as you can see, right? So the mother's brother, sometimes we say the uncle will be marrying. So during that cases, right, the children being born, there are greater chances of inbreeding depression which might result in the genetic abnormalities, right? But the marriage between the cousin sisters is not that disastrous. So why is that, right? All these concepts are actually discussed over here. And chromosomes and chromosomal aberrations in man and methodology. So as you can see, the chromosomes within the cells, right? So the chromosomes, no system in the world is 100% efficient. The same way with the human body. So there are many chromosomal aberrations. Sometimes there will be mismatches, there will be one extra chromosome, there will be no chromosome. So because of these chromosomes, so what genetic abnormalities do we have, right? So we have chromosomal aberrations in man and methodology. So numerical and structural aberrations, disorders, right? We have sex chromosomal aberrations as well as autosomal aberrations, right? So these are the aberrations: Klinefelter, Turner, super female, intersex, and other syndromic disorders. And we have autosomal aberrations. Autosomes means non-sex chromosomes, right? So autosomes we have 22 pairs, and we have sex chromosomes one pair, XX or XY, right? So autosomes we have Down syndrome, Patau, Edward, and Cradichat syndrome. And we have genetic imprints in human diseases, genetic screening, genetic counseling, human DNA profiling, gene mapping, and genome study, right? So genetic imprints in the human disease, how genetic mutations cause the diseases. So how do you screen them? How do you counsel? So what is this? How do we actually profile the DNA? So how do you sequence the DNA? So what gene mapping and genomic studies we have? So everything is studied. And the next about the race and the racism. So you might know about the Holocaust, World War II, where the Nazis killed Jews, right? So because of the racial differences, even now, right? So there are many areas, the many parts of the world where they face extreme racism, right? So what is this concept of race and what is racism, right? So in this we study the biological basis of morphological variation for non-metric and metric characteristics, right? So what is the biological basis that we are different, right? What is the racial criteria, racial traits in relation to the hereditary and environment? So based upon the environment, the racial differences comes. If the sunlight is high in the geographical area I'm living in, I'll be darker because of the secretion of melanin, right? So how it is linked to the hereditary as well as with the environment, and what is the biological basis of racial classification and racial differentiation and race crossing in man? So this is all studied. For your information, there is no pure race. There is no pure breed in the entire world. The age, sex, and population variation. So when you're talking about age, sex, and population variation as a genetic marker, ABO, RH blood, HLA, and transferring, GM, blood enzymes, so all these things, the population variation. So we have the entire things are different in our blood, right? How are we different? So what are the factors that actually made those things differ? And the next we discuss about the physiological characteristics of HB levels, body fat, pulse rate, respiratory functions, sensory perceptions, right? And how is it different? Cultural and socio-economic groups, in different cultural and socio-economic groups, right? So this is what is studied. And concepts and methods of ecological anthropology, right? So we already know about the ecological aspects and its importance, and how UPS is specifically focusing on ecological importance, because we need to protect our world. We have only one home, right? So we discussed about ecological anthropology, the biocultural adaptations, genetic and non-genetic factors, man, physiological response to the environmental stress, right? And hot deserts, cold and high altitude climates. So for all these aspects, how the physiological responses of the man depend upon, how are they different, how do they vary, right? All these aspects are studied. So most of these concepts are very easy, right? So you will be able to understand, and it is very interesting as a way. So epidemiological anthropology, epidemiological in the sense diseases, right? Diseases, right? Epidemiological anthropology, here we discuss about health and the disease, infectious and non-infectious diseases, and nutritional deficiency and related diseases. And we discuss about concept of human growth and development. Here we discuss about the stages of growth: prenatal, natal, infant, childhood, adolescent, maturity, and senescence, from the birth to the death. And we discuss about the factors affecting the growth and development, both genetic, environmental, biochemical, nutritional, cultural, and socio-economic, every aspect that is affecting the growth and development of the individual. We discuss about aging and senescence, right? And we discuss about different theories and observations about biological and chronological longevity and human physics and somatotypes. So what kind of body structure do you have? And methodologies for growth studies. So everything is studied. Demographic theory, right? Demography, the population, census, right? So about the people, relevance of menarche, menopause, right? So when does the menstrual cycle starts and when does it stop and why does it stop, right? So the bio events of fertility and fertility patterns and differentials, and we discuss about demographic theories, biological, social, and cultural, and we discussed about biological and social ecological factors influencing fecundity, fertility, natality, mortality. So every aspect, right? So these concepts also comes under social justice, right? Social issues. Okay, so these are also comes under general studies, social issues, right? And we discussed about applications of anthropology. So what different applications of anthropology do we have? So we have anthropology in sports, nutritional anthropology, anthropology in designing of defense and other equipments, forensic anthropology, methods of principles of personal identification and reconstruction, applied human genetics, paternity diagnosis, genetic counseling and eugenics, DNA technology in diseases and medicine, serogenetics and cryogenetics in reproductive biology, different applications of anthropology. So this is what we have in anthropology paper 1. As you can see, the most of the concepts are linked to the socio-cultural anthropology as well as biological anthropology and ecological anthropology and linguistic anthropology as well. So all the 4 branches were covered with a specific focus on biological anthropology, right? So once we study this anthropology, right, we'll get to know so what different races of people that have actually come. So what social institutions do they really follow? So what kind of society are they living in? So what kind of beliefs do they have? So what kind of religion do they believe in? So what different theories of anthropology and what are the applications of it? So about the biological aspects of individual, right? So everything we're gonna get to know, right? So anthropology paper 2 specifically focuses on Indian anthropology, right? Indian societies. Whereas anthropology paper 1 spoke about diverse aspects, not just Indian, right? It is generalized. Whereas anthropology paper 2 specifically focus on cultural anthropology and specifically Indian anthropology, Indian societies, right? Both primitive as well as present societies. We'll see. In the syllabus of anthropology paper 2, we have evolution of Indian culture and civilization. Right? You will be studying the same in ancient history in general studies. Right? And for your information, ancient history is not at all relevant for mains examination. Right? Ancient history is only there for the prelim syllabus, whereas art and culture is there for the mains. Okay? Please check the syllabus before preparing. So we have prehistoric, Paleolithic, Mesolithic, Neolithic and Chalcolithic, everything. And we have protohistoric, Indus civilization, pre-Harappan, Harappan and post-Harappan civilizations, right? And we have the contributions of tribal cultures to the Indian civilizations. How the tribal cultures have actually contributed to the development of Indian civilization, right? This is studied. So Paleo era, right? Paleo, the ancient, right? Anthropological evidences from India with special reference to Shivaliks. As I told you, India, right? We study about Indian aspects, right? And Narmada Basin. So we discussed about Ramapithecus, Sivapithecus, and Narmada Man, the fossil remains of India that were found on Indian subcontinent. And we study about ethno-archaeology in India, right? So the concept of ethno-archaeology is studied, survivals and parallels among the hunting, foraging, fishing, pastoral and peasant communities, including arts and crafts producing communities, all the different communities of India, right? So as you can see, right, ethno-archaeology is research technique that involves using information from living cultures, right? So whatever the information that we have from the living cultures, that is actually taken, right, in the form of ethnology, ethnography, ethnohistory and experimental archaeology to, for what purpose? To to understand patterns found at an archaeological site, right? To understand the primitive societies, we take the basis of the present day societies. That is what we call ethno-archaeology, right? So we talk about the present day societies, we find the patterns and we link those patterns to the primitive societies, right, based upon the remains that were found in the archaeological sites. An ethno-archaeologist acquires evidence about ongoing activities in any society and uses those studies to draw analogies from modern behavior to explain better understanding patterns sees in the archaeological sites. So demographic profile of India. Demographic profile of India, right? Ethnic and linguistic elements in Indian population and their distribution. So what different ethnic groups do we have? What different languages do we speak? And Indian population factors influencing structure and growth, right? So structure and nature of the traditional Indian social system. Indian, right? So in this we study about Varna, Varnashram, right? Purushartha, Karma, Rina, Rebirth. So all these different aspects. In Varna, we know Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishyas and Shudras. Ashrams, Brahmacharya and Grihastha and Vanaspata and Shanyasa. And for Purushartha, we have Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. For Karma, we have Ahistata, Karta, Karm, Chesta, Deva. And for Rina, we have Devrena, Rishi, Priti, and Atithi. Right? So what all these different aspects? So right? So what kind of structure or the nature of traditional Indian societal system do we have? Right? So we believe in karma, we believe in rebirth, right? So the karma is of totally different and rebirth is of totally different. The karma is something which is happening right now and rebirth is something imaginative. We don't really know that it is happening, it is just a belief. And at the same time we have different social structure, right? So layered social structure, the varna system, and we have different ashrams, right? So the brahmacharya, so initially he has to be celibate, right? The finally has to become the sannyasi, he has to leave everything, right? So only then he will be getting the moksha, right? So purushartha, this is if it is a human, so what all different aspects he has to follow, right? So what vows he'll have to take. So all these are the structure and the nature of the Indian traditional Indian societal system. And we discussed about the caste system of India, right? The structure and characteristics, varna and the caste, theories of origin of caste system, right? And dominant caste, caste mobility, future of caste system, and judgmony system and tribe caste continuum. So all these aspects of the caste, right? And we discussed about the sacred complex and nature, right? The man spirit complex, right? Man nature and spirit complex, right? So as you can see, for your information, the concept of sacred complex was proposed by LP Vidyarthi under the influence of Robert Redfield, and the aspects of great and little tradition as put up Redfield was applied to the Indian context. That means sacred complex, geographical, right? So how do you really see that place as the sacred, right? What are the different aspects that are involved in that sacred complex? So how the nature is actually involved, so how the man is actually changing the nature, how everything is intertwined, right? Everything, that is what we call the sacred complex, right? That is studied. And impact of Buddhism, Jainism, Islam, Christianity on Indian society. The reason why Indian society is different is we also discussed the impact of all these religions on the tribal communities of India as well, right? And we discussed about emergence and growth of anthropology in India, contributions of 18th, 19th, and early 20th century scholars and administrators, right? So how it has actually evolved, right? How the anthropology has actually evolved. So how they are separated, how they were divided, and how it has gradually evolved. So what were those anthropological findings? So who are those anthropologists? Everything is included in this, right? Contributions of Indian anthropologists to tribal and caste studies, right? Contribution of Indian anthropologists extremely crucial, right? And we discussed about Indian village, significance of village study in India, Indian village as a social system, traditional and changing patterns of settlements and intercaste relations, agrarian relations in Indian villages, impact of globalization on Indian villages, everything about Indian villages, right? And we discuss about linguistic and religious minorities and their social, political, and economic status. So obviously, when you're talking about linguistic and religious minorities, we talk about the fundamental rights, right? We discuss about the constitution that will be covered as well, and social justice is covered, and social issues is covered, right? And indigenous and exogenous processes of socio-cultural change in Indian society, and we discuss about Sanskritization, Westernization, and modernization and its impacts. And we discussed about interplay of little and great traditions, and panchayat raj and social change, and media and the social change, right? And we discussed about the tribal situation in India. So biogenetic variability, so different ethnic groups, the linguistic and the socio-economic characteristics of the tribal population, and as well as the tribal population distribution. Right, tribal communities, it is extremely crucial. You have to remember the names of the tribal communities and the culture associated with them. We discuss about the problems of the tribal communities: land alienation, poverty, indebtedness, low literacy, poor educational facilities, unemployment, underemployment, health and nutrition, all the aspects. We discuss about developmental projects and their impact on tribal displacement, developmental projects and their impact on the tribal displacement, right? So you can actually see Kantara movie for this reference, right? There are many movies which talks about the tribal displacement and injustice that is being done, right? And the problems of rehabilitation and development of the forest policy and the tribals, impact of urbanization and industrialization of the tribal populations. And we discuss about the problems of exploitation and deprivation of the scheduled caste, scheduled tribes and other backward classes, and the constitutional safeguards. So obviously Indian polity, social justice will be covered over here, and social change and contemporary tribal societies. So how the change has actually happened. So what contemporary tribal societies do we have right now? The impact of modern democratic institutions, development program and welfare measures to the tribal and the weaker sections, right? So concept of ethnicity, ethnic conflicts and political developments. So India is of multi-ethnic society. It is not mono-ethnic society. We do not have only one ethnic group. We have multiple diverse ethnic groups in all of India. It is totally diverse. So because of the diversity, what ethnic conflicts? So northeastern territory, if you see, it is all about the ethnic conflicts and the political developments and unrest among the tribal communities, racialism and demand for autonomy, and pseudo-tribalism, right? They are not tribals, but they, right? They act so. Pseudo tribalism and social change among the tribes during colonial and post-independent India, right? And we discussed about impact of different religions on the tribal societies, right? We discussed about tribe and nation state, a comparative study of tribal communities in India and other countries. Tribe and nation state, comparative study of tribal communities in India, right? And we study about history of administration of tribal areas, right? So because tribal areas comes under special category status, they have the autonomy to govern their own land. So how? Tribal policies, plans, programs of the tribal development and their implementation, right? Concept of primitive tribal groups, the distribution, special programs for the development, role of NGOs in the tribal development. The last topic, but not the least, role of anthropology in tribal and rural development, right? And contributions of anthropology to understand regionalism, communalism, and ethnic and political movements in India and across the world. So this is what we have for anthropology optional, right? So how we gonna cover the entire concept is we take about 3 months of time, and in these 3 months every day we'll be having 1.5 hour of lecture, right? Associated with examination. So every day you will be given the questions where you will have to study and answer it then and there, right? then we will be discussing the answer, how it has to be written, right? So what important aspects, so I'll make another video for your reference, how the answer writing has to be done for the greater result, right, for better scoring. So this I'll be covering in the next video, the skill of answer writing to get the best scoring. So I believe you have understood what all areas are actually covered in anthropology optional, right? If you have any queries, please put down in the comments below so that I can address in the next video. Thank you so much. See you soon. Bye.